¿Frustrado con la pronunciación del ed en inglés? Tranquilo, porque en los próximos minutos vas a entender exactamente cómo pronunciar estas terminaciones. Te prometo que después de este video, cuando veas cualquier verbo terminado en ed, vas a saber inmediatamente cómo pronunciarlo, sin dudas, sin confusiones. Este video tiene 3 partes. Primero, aprenderás a pronunciar estos verbos de forma correcta en palabras aisladas. Después verás cómo suenan en el habla natural, tal y como los usa un nativo. Y finalmente practicaremos juntos hasta que te salga perfecto. Y no te despegues al final del video porque te voy a compartir una práctica gratuita con más de 100 verbos y oraciones ed para que masteres todo lo que vas a aprender hoy. Empecemos. The ed ending in verbs like needed, looked, moved can make 3 basic sounds. Id as in needed, id, needed. T, like in looked, t, looked. And d as in moved, d, moved. The rules for which of these 3 sounds to make depends on the sound that comes right before the ed. El sonido justamente antes de la ed. Rule number 1. If the sound before the ed is a d or t sound, like in needed, started, united, created, interested, we pronounce that ed ending id. Now try pronouncing these words. Wanted, folded, waited. Rule number 2, if this sound is unvoiced, que significa sordo or sin voz, o sea, las cuerdas vocales no vibran durante el sonido, like in k, s, f, ch, p, then the ed is pronounced t, like in asked, based, worked, reached, stopped, finished. Now you try pronouncing these words. Marked, forced, splashed. Rule number 3, if the sound before the ed is voiced, that is sonoro or con voz, con las cuerdas vocales vibrando, como l, n, z, it is pronounced d, like in used, called, turned, moved, considered. I want to point out this rule is based on the sound that comes before ed, not the letters, but the sound. Look at the word used. That S makes a Z sound, used, which is voiced or con voz. So the ed ending makes the D sound, used. Try pronouncing these words. Seemed, received, signed. So to quickly recap, this rule has 3 parts, and it always depends on the sound right before the ed. If that sound is a T or D sound, like in needed, ed is pronounced id. If that sound is unvoiced, like in asked, ed is pronounced T or T. And if it's a voice sound, like in moved, the ed is pronounced D or D. And I'm going to be real with you, these rules alone are not going to solve your problem. You don't want to have to be thinking about this while speaking English. It's too complicated. Like imagine you're in a meeting with your boss and you're reading something and you see a word that ends in ed, like this one. You're not going to look at the sound before the ed and then go, shh, okay, unvoiced, astonished. So this rule is great to know because it gives you a basic idea of how this works. But the way to master it so you can pronounce these words like a native speaker does without thinking about it is to practice until it feels natural. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Now remember, 99% of native speakers don't know this rule. They learned it by saying hundreds of words and most importantly by imitating native speakers. Children learn to speak before they can read. So they're not looking at the ed ending and the sound that comes before it. They're just listening closely and copying exactly what they hear. And that's how I encourage my students to practice. Now, I'm going to put a word on the screen and I want you to read it aloud and do your best to pronounce it correctly. Then I'll read the word and I want you to try to imitate me exactly. Okay, first word. Closed. Next word. pushed, connected, fixed, failed, limited. I want you to pay close attention to that last word. Notice how I say the T, limited. It's really fast. I'm not saying limited. It's more like a really fast D, and it's the same sound you might have heard in words like butter and water. Americans make this fast D sound, technically called the alveolar tap, whenever T or D comes between two vowels. Butter, water, limited. This fast D is going to come up when we start using ED endings in real speech. You're doing great, and now you know how to pronounce these ED words in isolation, but you're not here because you want to say single words. You want to speak real, natural English. And in real speech, words connect together. How we make a sound can depend on the sounds around it. This is especially true for ED endings, and it's one of the reasons non-native speakers struggle so much to pronounce them. You already know how the sound before the ED affects the pronunciation. That's what we just learned. Now let's talk about the sound that comes after. That is the sound at the start of the next word. The next word starts with a vowel. Here's how it's going to change our three cases. So interested with that id sound, interested in. Do you hear that fast D again? The same one in words like butter, water, limited, interested in. When words with that id sound, like needed or wanted, are followed by a vowel, the D turns into that fast D. I needed a break. Needed a. I wanted a water. Wanted a. I'm interested in research. Interested in. Okay, your turn. Read these sentences aloud, trying to use that quick D. I'll read first and you imitate. I needed a break. I wanted a water. I'm interested in research. So the next cases are pretty easy. When the word ends with that t or d sound, like an asked or moved, and the next word starts with a vowel, it makes the same sound, but it links to the next word. It connects to the next word. But again, that sound doesn't change. Se vinculan con la palabra siguiente, pero el sonido no cambia. Let's see a few examples. I walked in. Walked, walked, walked in. It's almost like that T sound moves to the start of the next word. Walked in, walked in. It makes the same sound, but it's just moved over to the start of the next word. Let's practice that with a couple sentences. She walked in the class. I slept all day. Slept all day. It's the same when the ED ending makes a D sound, like in moved, moved in, moved, moved in. Again, it makes the same sound but connects to the next word, so it sounds like moved in. Try these sentences. I moved in last week. I learned a lot. Next, let's talk about when the next word starts with a consonant. You might notice that sometimes when the next word starts with a consonant, like S, we don't always fully pronounce the D or T at the end. I needed some help. Needed some. Yeah, I worked 7 days. Worked 7. Notice you don't hear that T or D much at all. There's little to no difference between I work 7 days and I worked 7 days. We mostly tell the difference through context. There's no clear rule here. Sometimes we pronounce the T or D before a consonant, and sometimes we don't. So the most important thing is that you listen to native speakers and imitate. I recommend all my students do a technique called shadowing, which is where you watch a movie or a YouTube video or listen to a podcast in American English. And when someone says something, you try to copy it exactly. You could and should be doing that when you watch my videos, as it will help you get better faster. Before I share my completely free special practice that is going to help you master ED endings, I want to talk about one more special case. If the next word starts with a y sound, like in yellow or usual, sometimes the ed ending can turn into a ch or j sound. You might hear someone say, I asked you, I asked you, or I wanted you, I wanted you. We don't do this all the time, so I don't recommend you practice it, but I do want you to be aware of it and to listen for it. If you learn to listen for subtle details like this, you'll start to find that you're pronouncing them just like a native speaker without thinking about it, which is exactly what you want. I just did a video on 21 words you might be subtly mispronouncing, so that's a great place to start. So remember, if a word ends with a vowel plus D, like the id and wanted, folded, weighted, and the next word starts with a vowel, we change from the normal D to that fast tap. Folded, I folded a shirt. Folded a. And if the word ends with D or T and the next word starts with a vowel, we connect the sounds and that D/T moves to the start of the next word. I moved in, moved in. Okay, so now it's time for our special practice. I could have you read 20 more sentences with ed endings here in this YouTube video, but the problem is you don't know if you're saying it right. To get better, you need immediate feedback to tell you when you said it right and when you said it wrong. That's what I do with students in my private classes, but I can only help 10 students a day, and I want to help 10,000. So I built an AI that can do exactly what I do in my private classes, instantly tell you when you're mispronouncing something and tell you how to fix it. The key to mastering the ed endings and solving this problem for good is practice, feedback, and repetition. So let me show you how you can practice this for free with Pronuncia AI. All right, here we are. Let me show you how this tool is going to help you master ed endings. So here we've got the word worked. Got that t sound on the end. We're going to click the microphone button, read the word, and then click again and get instant feedback on our pronunciation. Worked. Cool, so I pronounced it correctly. But what if I didn't? What if I missed that T sound and just said work? Work. I'm going to pick it up and mark red so we know we need to practice it again. If we click here, we can get a little bit more detail about what went wrong. I didn't pronounce that T. It was a silent sound. Let me try again. A lot of people will accidentally pronounce this word worked with a D sound. Worked. If I do that, it's going to let me know instead of a T, I heard a D there. So you're always going to have that level of feedback to know what adjustment you need to make to say it correctly. So let's try one more time and say it correctly. Worked. Now, once we've got that, we can move on to the next word. Click new random word here. Each time you'll get a new ed word. There's up to 1,500 in here, and they're all in the most common 10,000 words, so they're all worth practicing. Just keep clicking till you find one you want to practice. If you're not sure how to say it, you'll click this button here and you'll hear it read aloud. If you're not sure what one of the symbols means, I know most of you aren't familiar with the phonetic alphabet. You can comment and click on here and you'll see exactly how to make this sound. With a little bit more detail, it'll show you a word that sound is. This is the R sound, like in right. We're trying to say geared, geared, geared. Perfect. If you're not sure what geared means, you can click this symbol right here. It'll show you a simple definition and a few example sentences that'll help you figure out the meaning. Now, maybe you've practiced enough random words, you're feeling good. You can click choose new word, and this will show you the entire list. So you can scroll down here. The ones at the beginning are more common words. The ones towards the end are more advanced words. So if you're really advanced and you just want to test yourself, scroll down to the bottom and we can try hanged, botched. Let's try botched. And if I read this wrong, botched, I'm going to get marked with a red. We can see what this means. We can hear how it's pronounced, and then we can say it right. Botched. Next, we're going to head over and practice full sentences so that you can master it in real natural speech. It's the exact same thing. Everything works the same way, except now we're practicing full sentences. The car stopped at the red light. Perfect. Everything comes back green. If I miss this linkage, remember it's stopped at. Stopped at. If I miss this T and I say the car stop at, it'll catch me. The car stop at the red light. I'm going to notice that and mark it for you. So this is going to be such an essential tool for you mastering the ed endings. You can practice more random sentences, or you can choose from a list of over 300 sentences. Just come in here. I have planned a trip to the beach. Watch out for that word. As you know, beach can be a tricky one. If I say, I have planned a trip to the bitch, it's going to pick up that E sound there. So it's not only going to mark you wrong on EDs, but on all sounds. So come here and practice, create a free account. It'll take about 30 seconds, and you'll be able to use this for up to 20 audios a day completely free. Go ahead and click the link in the description to get started practicing. I promise you, if you practice these ED endings every day for a week, you'll never have to worry about this problem again. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.